No. You want to bring me in, or do you want me to bring me in? All right. Okay. Hello, guys, and welcome to this live stream as we're watching Hurricane Franklin make its way towards land in Mexico for the state of Veracruz. For Cayman Hurricane Center, I'm Adam McDougall. So let's kick this off with the latest advisory, which is a little bit old. However, we should be getting the landfall confirmation very shortly. But as of the 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time, location was at 20.2 north, 96.1 west, moving west at 13, with a minimum pressure of 985 millibars and a wind speed of 85 miles per hour. Of course, there are higher gusts expected. Could be possible as the system makes its way towards land. Here, as you see on your screen, is the latest GOES 16 satellite imagery of the hurricane as it's making its way towards land. We are, again, pretty close to landfall, if not at landfall already. We're waiting on that official confirmation by the National Hurricane Center. But again, landfall
David,
is to be expected somewhere around Santa Ana, or just slightly north of Santa Ana, possibly near Les Aguilas area, and probably
if you respond with voice,
northeast of La Florida.
Just when I talk to you,
system should continue to make its way towards the land. This here is the latest. I can't really get any up-to-date microwave imagery at the moment, so I'm using the Mimic total precipitable water from CIMMYS. Here shows you the inner core of the system, and fairly organized. It does have an eye wall. It's fairly good, not completely hefty eye wall that you would see, say, in a major hurricane or anything, but it is there and it is getting itself better organized. Here we are, the forecast cone for
apology for the break in transmission. We are new at this, and we have a couple people in the background, and the other person, can you hear me? For the break in transmission. We are new at this, and we have a couple people in the background.
Yeah, what's up, guys?
And the other person, can you hear me?
Alright, we're live again. This is just a test, though, very quickly, okay? Yeah, what's up, guys? Let me log in and see if I can hear my own voice. Alright, we're live again. This is just a test, though, very quickly, okay? Yeah, what's up, guys? Let me log in and see if I can hear my own voice. Okay, I can hear my own voice. So, David, what I'm going to do is leave the call. Yeah, what's up, guys? Let me log in and see if I can hear my own voice. Okay, I can hear my own voice. So, David, hold on. It's still pulling the stream on its delay, so I can't tell. Okay, I can hear my own voice. So David, hold on. It's still pulling the stream on its delay, so I can't tell. Okay, I can hear my own voice. So David, hold on. It's still pulling the stream on its delay, so I can't tell. All right, guys. That plan is absolutely not going to work. My voice gets transmitted through David's computer and into the stream. So I will be silent and just texting both of you in Skype. Kill it. Kill it.
Another apology. We've sorted the issue out, and shortly Anna should be here.
Yes, indeed. I am here. Yes, apologies for the technical issues, as it is still new and just getting the hang of things. Right, so let's get right onto it. And here is the forecast cone for Hurricane Franklin, as well as providing the wind field for Hurricane Franklin. The wind field very expansive, especially for the tropical storm force winds, not so much for the hurricane force winds, which only extend out at about 35 miles, but the tropical storm force winds do extend quite a bit further out to about 150 miles out from the center of circulation. Just going into a bit more details on as such, the storm, or hurricane should I say, should be making its way across the state of Veracruz pretty much very shortly, if not already, with the more serious effects of the hurricane force to be impacting across the area, with, of course, the very more troubling issue, not so much the winds from the system, but the rainfall action as well as storm surge. Just to give details on that, rainfall totals of 4 to 8 inches with isolated maximum amounts of 15 inches possible across the Mexican state of Tabasco, northern Veracruz, northern Baluba, Tlaxcala, Hidalgo, QSR, eastern San Luis Potosí, and in eastern Mexico. These rains will be capable of producing life-threatening flash floods and also mudslides. Again, the wind is a bit of an issue, not so much that large of an issue, except for the hurricane force winds, which again only extend out to about 30 miles, 35 miles, but the overall tropical storm force with 150, you know, the hurricane warning areas that are up, hurricane force winds are expected only in a small area of that. We have information that the center of circulation is miles of the coast and closing. So we're getting very, very close now to that landfall for Hurricane Franklin in towards Mexico. Just continuing on again, the storm surge threat will raise the water level as much as 4 to 6 feet above the normal tide levels along the immediate coast and near the north of where the center makes landfall. Of course, you know, you got that onshore flow coming in with that circulation on that north side, with the winds coming in as such in that sort of direction from the east to west. Right, so hurricane hunters were flying into this system earlier this evening, and they did find this system pretty much at 85 with possible gusts. Noted, especially in the satellite imagery and in the recon flights, that there has been some organization pattern, and the deeper convection around the center and the outflow around all quadrants, which does suggest for a strengthening system. And the National Hurricane Center does indicate that we could be seeing the system either strengthen a little bit or fluctuate in intensity as it heads towards land. And there is also the threat of much higher gusts as you do get the land friction occurring, especially knowing that just slightly inland, you got that mountain range along here, and it does go pretty steep upwards, and all that will be coming in and up along there. That will also be another threat for the rainfall issue along there, and with the mudslides and the flash flooding in those sort of low-lying areas. So looking at the previous track for this system, as it is started in the Caribbean and actually started in the Eastern Caribbean, where it continued on a west-west-northwest track through the Caribbean, where it then picked up in intensity and picked up and started off as a potential tropical cyclone number 7 in the Western Caribbean, then quickly made its way up to Tropical Storm Franklin, and almost made it to hurricane intensity when it made landfall along the Yucatan area, and then crossed over into the Bay of Campeche. Actually came off fairly early this morning, which then continued on and strengthened to hurricane, and is now bearing down on the hurricane. Again, this is the present satellite imagery of the area of Hurricane Franklin as it makes its way in towards the coast of Mexico. Right, there we go. And it definitely appears that the center is very, very close to making its way onshore already. A fair bit of the convective mass is already onshore, and you could see that on the western side, the overall structure of the system is starting to deteriorate somewhat, especially as it gets towards the mountainous areas. You could definitely see the breakdown starting to occur on this side of the system here. Again, going on to its future after it does cross the areas of Mexico, it is expected that we could be seeing this as a ghost system or remnant low pop out back in the Eastern Pacific, where there are some suggestions that that could possibly redevelop over on that side. Of course, we got lots more to worry about before we do get to that point. But for those in western Mexico and the Baja California region, will need to be watching this system as it crosses over. So here we are at about 12:30 a.m. Eastern Standard, as we wait for the official confirmation by the National Hurricane Center that Franklin has indeed made a landfall on the coast of Mexico. And yeah, this is where we stand at the moment. If David or all have anything to say at the
could Hurricane Franklin intensify further, or do we say that it's now weakening? And it looks like it has made a landfall. That's the news coming through.
Yes. Well, it is stated by the National Hurricane Center that this thing could slightly intensify a bit more just before or as it makes landfall. And it's certainly possible. I don't think it'll be that much, and I think the time period for intensification is quickly coming to an end. If it does, it's got to do so now or within the next half hour or so. It's at 85, it could ramp up another 5, go up to 90. We will have to see. But either way, very dangerous hurricane damage from the winds is expected, only in that very small area, again, 35 miles. But again, wider 150 miles of tropical storm force winds still can do a bit of damage. Obviously not as much as, say, the full-on hurricane force winds, but long prolonged tropical storm force can produce similar damage to, say, a minimal hurricane with a wind field, again, with 35. You are still looking at a decent amount of damage for a tropical storm. Just want to point out we do have one of the storm chasers out there in the area, Josh Morgan from My Cyclone, and he's out there reporting that, you know, through the area, winds were a bit stronger earlier, but now he is receiving the periods of dead calm in the eye, a few breaks in clouds, a few doves barking in the distance, minimum pressure of 990, and the winds are shifting to the south to where he is. He's very close to where the eye is at present, which seems to be making its way on land. Continue to bring you some more coverage on what Hurricane Franklin is doing, and we are awaiting on the official report by the National Hurricane Center that confirms that Franklin has indeed made landfall. Also, whilst we're at that, just also want to mention the other 2 areas of interest out there in the Atlantic. Just very going into details exactly with them. We do have Area Invest 99L located here, just northeast or east-northeast of the Eastern Caribbean Islands here. This should continue on a west-northwest to northwest track. Eventually could become a possible East Coast threat here as it moves up along the East Coast. Right now, not so much development with that. And again, there's another little area here near the Bahamas. Not really expecting too much of for that system, mainly just a sort of rain event for areas of Cuba, the northern Bahamas, and South Florida. But at this time, nothing else of any sort of imminent threat other than Hurricane Franklin. Oh boy. What's going on? Oh no. Come on. All right, so again, I do think that we have made landfall, and just waiting on that official confirmation by the National Hurricane Center. But definitely, as the system makes its way further and further onshore, the threat does not go away as rainfall will continue to be an issue as the system crosses over Mexico. Again, the flash flood and mudslide threat is still quite high. And also to mention with the eye likely passing through areas near Santa Ana, La Florida, Emilia, Carrienza, La Chagulas, those areas there is where the general areas where the eye is making landfall. Maybe areas extending as far north as Vega de Alatorre and Las Vegas would be areas that would be fairly much experiencing the eye wall, if not directly in the eye. Yep. So again, just waiting on the official confirmation by the National Hurricane Center, but it is definitely looking like it has indeed, as such, made landfall.
What I'm bringing up on the screen is the latest NOAA floaters, and Adam, what direction do you think it's now tracking?
Well, to me, it's more of a west-southwest, or maybe even a south of due west track. That general track is to be more or less expected to continue as it crosses over, and once it does cross over, a general west-northwest track to continue from here on out.
Now, considering there is a few second delay in the broadcast, what else have we got? Sea surface temperature, Adam. I'll just sea surface temperature. Go on.
Yeah, the sea surface temperatures are about 30, 31 degrees, so fairly quite warm to sustain the system. I just also want to pop in here. I do have that official confirmation by the National Hurricane Center. As of 1 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the National Hurricane Center has confirmed Franklin makes landfall on the coast of Mexico as Category 1 hurricane, 20.0 north, 96.7 west, moving generally still westwards at 13. Pressure of 988 millibars, and the winds are still at 85 miles per hour. Again, this, according to the latest advisory, about 80 miles southeast of Tuxpan, Mexico, or about 70 miles north-northwest of Veracruz. And again, nothing else has changed. The expectations with forecast is still the same. The effects are still going to be the same throughout the evening. Obviously, conditions will start to lighten up a little bit as the storm continues to weaken, but that's still not expected for some time yet. Once the system starts to continue to move over the mountains, at least the winds will be going down. But again, 4 to 6 inches of rain, maximum isolated amounts 15 across Mexican states of Tabasco, northern Veracruz, northern Puebla, Tlaxcala, Hidalgo, Querétaro, eastern San Luis Potosí, in eastern Mexico. And again, those rains are definitely capable of producing that life-threatening flash flood and those mudslides. And another advisory from the National Hurricane Center will be out again at 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And so that is official from the National Hurricane Center that Franklin has now indeed made landfall across Mexico. Again, as a reminder to anyone who is in this eye wall, to make sure you stay indoors. Just because the calm is present does not mean that you're out of it as of yet. There is still the second half of the system still to come through. And frankly, the worst part of the storm. Usually it's the northeastern area of the storm that is the worst. It is that is still yet to come on shore, or is in the process of starting to come on shore. I have presently on my screen here, I have the latest GOES 16 satellite imagery of Franklin as it does make its way on to land. And again, I have fallen in love with the GOES 16 imagery. So crisp, so perfect, so smooth. And you could see as the system makes its way onshore, the cold cloud tops of the center of the system, the central dense overcast, is starting to warm a bit, and we do expect it to continue to do so as it makes its way onshore. Pretty much all of that central dense overcast now onshore. And also the worrying thing here is with the storm surge threat, areas all along this area here would be expecting that higher storm surge. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe that it is low tide at the present time, so at least that is helpful, that even though you have the higher than normal waves plus the surge you get for it, that at least the tide is further low, so the effects won't be as drastic as, say, if it was to make its landfall at high tide, and the wave threat would have been much higher. Again, if anyone's out there, and please leave any questions or comments. If you're in the area, let us know how conditions are in your area. Let us know. We want to hear from you.
Hurricane Franklin is currently located 20 decibels 0 degrees north, 96 decibels 7 degrees west.
Yep. Which still makes Franklin a Category 1 hurricane. And again, max winds 85, minimum pressure 988 millibars.
Adam, do you have any other images, scenes that you can bring up?
At the moment, just now, not as of yet.
All right. Well,
just also to remind people who don't really know, but nearly 500,000 people live in Veracruz, and that's just south of where the eye is. So those people are currently being affected on the southern edge of the system, the southern half of the system, and they are getting the rain and some winds.
And currently on the screen, Adam, is the latest watches.
Yeah, just to run those watches and warnings, we do have a hurricane warning in effect for the coast of Mexico from Puerto de Veracruz to Cabo Rojo. Hurricane watch in effect from Cabo Rojo to Rio Panuco. I think I pronounced that right. Tropical storm warnings in effect for south Puerto de Veracruz to Puerto dos Bocas, and also north of Cabo Rojo to Barra del Toro. Obviously, the warning means that hurricane conditions are expected within that warning area. Well, right now, and all the preparations would hopefully have been completed at this point, and you guys in those areas are hunkered down, safe and protected from this storm. Obviously, the watch areas, hurricane conditions are possible within those watch areas. The warnings, tropical storm conditions are expected within those warning areas at this point. And again, storms making landfall, and those areas are being affected at this time.
And at the bottom of the screen, Adam, scrolling is Franklin is moving a little south of West near 13 miles per hour, 20 kilometers an hour. And the population is over 8 million.
That would be in Mexico City. That would be.
And
which will be affected by the rainfall. And this is the first storm to make landfall across the eastern Yucatan for this year. And if we remember that we also had last year Hurricane Earl, which even though was further south made landfall in Belize, following a somewhat similar path as it headed out into the Bay of Campeche. It had continued on towards the state of Veracruz, which also became a sort of tragic event for there with the rainfall issues. So we may be seeing a similar sort of situation as Hurricane Franklin moves towards that direction. Also, if we remember back in 2012, we also had Ernesto, which also very similarly tracked across the Yucatan and through the Bay of Campeche as well.
The center of Franklin made landfall in the Mexican state of Veracruz, and near the town of Locuilas. I know I haven't got the pronunciation right on that one.
Yeah, those, yeah. And believe that Franklin may have caused some deaths already in Honduras, the affected areas as such from the system beforehand, Honduras, Belize, Guatemala with rain. Also other areas that have been affected by Franklin, parts of Nicaragua, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, as well as parts of the Eastern Caribbean in its early genesis.
Currently on the screen, Adam, is a little bit more from the latest National Hurricane Center's advisory. Rainfall totals of 4 to 8 inches with isolated maximum amounts of 15 inches possible across the Mexican states. Tabasco, northern Veracruz, northern Puebla, and other areas. These rains are capable of producing life-threatening flash floods and mudslides. Adam, what do we say about the wind factor?
The wind factor for Hurricane Franklin, again, hurricane force winds within those warning areas, tropical storm force within the tropical storm force and hurricane areas. The hurricane force winds only extend out in this storm about 35 miles, but the much more wider tropical storm force extends out to 150 miles.
And just following on with the information from the National Hurricane Center, hurricane conditions occurring on the coast within the hurricane warning area. Preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion. Tropical storm conditions expected across parts of the tropical storm warning area along the southern shore of the Bay of Campeche through early Thursday. Hurricane conditions possible also within the hurricane watch area for the next few hours. Tropical storm conditions expected within the tropical storm warning area in eastern Mexico during the next several hours. A storm surge, a dangerous storm surge, will raise water levels by as much as 4 to 6 feet and above the normal tide levels along the immediate coast.
I just want to clarify on an earlier statement. The deaths that have been reported were of fishermen on the Yucatan coast area, not Honduras, just to clarify on that. The estimated area of location of the center of circulation is about 1.2 nautical miles south of El Laurel in Mexico, or about 8 nautical miles north of Lagunas as it continues on towards the west. Or 1.8, my apologies.
And the breaking news is that Franklin has made a landfall on the coast of Mexico as a Category 1 hurricane. Location is 20.0 degrees north, 96.7 degrees west. Maximum sustained winds 85 miles per hour, and present movement is westerly at 13 miles per hour, and central pressure is 988 millibars. So the central pressure will now start to rise. And Adam, over what number of hours could we see it weakening?
It should, after this landfall and as it moves towards the mountains, we should be expecting a rapid weakening as it starts to get tangled up in those mountains. So we're looking at the likelihood of seeing this thing weaken down to, say, 40 miles per hour within the next 12, maybe slightly less hours, and then down to maybe a tropical depression in about 24, and possibly dissipated or at least weakened to a remnant low by about 36 hours from now. But either way, the threat for more rain and is still going to be there as the system continues. The wind threat may die down, but the rainfall threat will still be an issue, and I think it's still going to be an issue right through its track across Mexico. And if it survives that track across Mexico, we would be looking at some issues with the system reorganizing, redeveloping over on western Mexico, and possibly become a threat for areas of the Baja and then further out. But again, that is still a few days away, and the main threat for the heavy rainfall across Mexico is still going to be prevalent for another day or two.
Currently on the screen is a look at the ISS space station, and is again to the north of the Philippines, quite a way up, probably Japan, and going into nightfall, coming down towards South America. And Adam, if you, in the meantime, if you can bring up the webcam.
Currently still don't have any at the present time. However, I am trying to work on something just now.
And not much information coming out. We would have liked to seen a couple of radars.
Yes, I was looking forward to seeing some radars, but it seems like radar, especially, I think there was one, especially for Veracruz, that was down at this time, which is fairly disappointing, as I was indeed looking for that to give us a clear view of that landfall as it had progressed.
And back on the screen is the GOES 16 satellite view, and the National Hurricane Center says it's tracking west. And once Adam brings up some new information, I will have a look at the models.
Yep. Just give me a couple seconds here and I'll be right with you. Okay, I have that ready. Okay, and so I have here, which is generally storms in the past that have made its way into this general area of Veracruz here. And as you can see, there are a fair bit of storms that have made its way across. A few of them that were of hurricane intensity, and a few that were of hurricane intensity on landfall. Could remember January 1995. There was an unnamed back in the 1800s. One that didn't quite make hurricane on land, but was unnamed in 1949. Also remembering, I believe it was Carl. In 2010. So this area, no strangers to tropical systems making landfall whatsoever. But yes. So, David, if you could take the screen for a moment, and I will be back up with some more stuff. Now, in the meantime, whilst that is occurring, we'll go back to the satellite imagery of Franklin as it continues to make its way onshore. As you can see, the storm, the hurricane has indeed definitely started to shrink in size. The overall size of the bands and so on are starting to more condense, and will continue to do so as this hurricane makes its way further and further onshore. And we'll definitely start to see that disruption of the circulation as it makes its way further and further inland and more into those mountains. Again, you could definitely see the central dense overcast, the very cold high cloud tops over the center, starting to warm up as it continues to move further and further to land.
And as it gets on land, it is near Mexico Highway 180. It is a little bit to the southeast of El Jasco, to the northeast of Adalberto Tejada, northeast of Ignacio Zaragoza, to the east of Martinez de la Torre, moving quickly at approximately 11.79 knots, give or take a few. That's about 14 miles an hour at a direction of 259 degrees. Again, at 6 a.m. UTC, that is 1 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the center of circulation, and again, we want to warn you that the center of circulation is only a point in a very large system, is at 20.08 north, 96.71 south. Again, if you are familiar with the area, that is near the bend in Mexico Highway 1800, a few miles to the north of Vega del Torre, and again a few miles to the southeast of El Jusco.
Yep, there. Thank you, Wilson. So, David, are you ready there? Yes, he's not just ready just yet. Again, if anyone out there is currently in or around this system, please send in what you got going on around you. Would like to hear more. Indeed, that was from this morning, and yeah. So as it was earlier concerned about how quickly the system would intensify, and as we saw, it had intensified quite well. As a matter of fact, surpassing the original forecast of only making it to 75 miles per hour. As a matter of fact, there was even some that said maybe only 70, but had, as a matter of fact, surpassed that and surpassed 75, gone up to 85 miles per hour. So definitely a little bit of an overachiever when it came into the Bay of Campeche. 981.
So this is a look at the HWRF Model 1. We'll have another look at the, we'll have a look at another model, the HWRFP.
Which is the, if I remember correctly, is the parent model to the HWRF, which shows the outer shell or the outer view of the same model, and it just gives you the overall look on the surrounding areas of the system, not just the core of the system.
And it looks like, okay, here it is. It's still loading. And just looking at this model, you don't think it will cross over into the EastPac?
It is certainly possible that this can do it. It's really got to try to keep its circulation intact. It's really got to, you know, try to maneuver over the mountains and get over there with at least some sort of organized existence left. The National Hurricane Center is thinking that that could be possible, as they do expect that there will be something left over. And as a matter of fact, they mentioned in their tropical weather outlook that an area of low pressure is expected to form just off the west central coast of Mexico late this week, and that would be the remnants of Hurricane Franklin after it moves across Mexico. And they do expect some development of the system to occur, and that would only be for a certain period of time until the conditions get more hostile. So there is a slight chance that it could develop as it crosses over. We'll see. National Hurricane Center is giving it a 40% chance over the next 5 days. And as it does so, it will be moving in a west-northwesterly direction once it makes that cross. Also, on a slightly unrelated note, they are expecting another area of low pressure to form well south of the coast of Mexico this weekend, where conditions are expected to be just a bit more slightly conducive for some gradual development later next week. So we could be seeing a double system in the Eastern Pacific as well, although chances are relatively moderate at this time.
It appears that the models are leading towards that position, and I just looked at Levi's tracks on Franklin, and the tracks have been consistent over several days now that indicate that Franklin is going to cross over from the Atlantic into the East Pac, and from just having a quick look at the models like the HWRF and the Power One, they're indicating a later form as what you mentioned. And currently on the screen is a live shot via one of the Mexican webcams. Adam, any idea what the location is?
That would be Veracruz, Mexico, very close to where the senator is located. I think this one updates, I believe it's every 15, I believe. Let me double check on that. Yeah, every 15 seconds this updates. So it's not exactly live, but like 15-second updating live. So yeah, as you can see in the images, you do see the trees are being somewhat tossed around or dancing around in the wind, and the rain is going.
And Adam, it looks like the ship model was spot on. They said, what's it? What's the yellow Cat 2? I know, actually, they mid-range Cat 1. So it looks like that particular model has done fairly well.
Well, then again, also mentioning that ship is more used for getting a general idea on the environment that's forecasted or expected within an area. So it's more used as a forecast analysis in a way, to try, give an idea. Okay, the shear levels are expected to be so and so. The humidity levels are expected to be. The sea surface temperatures are expected to be as such, and that it would be used as sort of a base for other models to say, okay, well, based on this, the storm would strengthen or weaken to a certain level, or it would organize in a certain level. So yeah, so you have that, and yeah, at times the ship does do fairly well, and at other times it sort of overdoes a particular feature and kind of makes a bit of mess. But then again, that's basically how all models are. They're not really giving you the exact thing. They're a guidance. They're assistance to making forecasts, and that's really all they're there for, is to help to make a better forecast. And you have all these groups of models, and when they work together, it helps to make a better forecast.
And not forgetting the source of the webcam. Adam, that's coming via what source, mate?
That would be from www.webcamsdemexico.com.
I think we might, we'll come back to that. I think there might be an update to what Adam just said. In the meantime, Hurricane Franklin has made a landfall, and at this point in time it's going to deliver some very heavy rainfall totals across its path, and is now weakening as it makes a track towards the East Pac. And repeating, Franklin has made landfall as a Cat 1 system. Present movement is west at 13 miles per hour, and minimum central pressure was 988 according to the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Now we'll have another look at a floater.
The police floater.
I have currently on the screen is another look at a floater on Hurricane Franklin.